Hello, everybody. Welcome to Axios House. Thank you for being here. I'm Julio Vaqueiro. I'm anchor with Noticias Telemundo. Very excited and happy to be here. So the plan today is to discuss Latino voters, talk about Latino voters and their importance in this election cycle. We're going to start off with a conversation with two Latina Congresswomen. One is from Texas, the other one is from Florida. And then we're going to have a conversation about the findings of a recent poll that show what are the issues that matter most to Latino voters, and especially what do Latino voters really think about President Donald Trump. So it's going to be interesting, and let's just get to it. Help me welcoming Congresswoman María Elvira Salazar and Congresswoman Mónica de la Cruz, please. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please.
Appreciate it. Good to see you all.
Here's your mic.
Yes, thanks a lot.
All right. So, Congresswoman, you can find your mic over there. Great. So, ready?
Ready. I'm just telling my daughter
To watch. Yeah, we're live. We're live streaming, correct. Okay. So, let's get to it. I want to begin by talking about the news of the day. We finally know who's going to be President Trump's running mate. And I wonder, Congresswoman de la Cruz, in your opinion, if you think that J.D. Vance is going to help with Latino voters in your district.
Well, I think that Senator Vance is an excellent choice. And I do believe that he will connect with voters and move specifically Hispanics towards the Republican Party, but towards voting for President Trump. The reason why is because, number one, Hispanics tend to have larger families, but we are also the demographic that has the youngest demographic. So we're the minorities that have the youngest demographics in the nation. And let's just be honest with you and our viewers here, is that right now, the younger population, they don't connect with Biden, and one of them has to do with age. So I believe that Hispanics, Hispanos, especially young ones, will be connecting with President Trump this cycle.
Now, Congresswoman Salazar, do you think that the decision not to choose Senator Marco Rubio was a missed opportunity to possibly attract more Latino voters for the coming election, for the Republican Party?
Well, I would have wanted also, of course, for Marco Rubio to have been chosen because that sent a very strong message to our community. But following what Monica is saying, Vance is the American dream. Vance is, he was able to escape poverty in a very difficult rural area in Ohio. He not only that, he had a very cruel and difficult childhood that, sometimes can cripple a person. And he was able to have the internal fortitude to come out of that. Mm-hmm. He went to the military, he went to law school, when all the odds were against him. So right there, he is the American dream. And I'm the American dream. My parents came 6 months before I was born in Miami. So we Hispanics, we can look up to him and say, well, if he did it, we can too. Okay. Because the opportunity is there, because this country gives you that opportunity. So that angle is very good. I think that we can identify with a J.D. Vance because of that.
Senator J.D. Vance was criticized for an ad campaign that he ran in 2022, where he asks, are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans? What's your opinion of that rhetoric?
What did he answer?
I'm asking you, what's your opinion?
Look, I think Hispanics, especially in my community, it's not about what you say, but what you do. And what we found in Hispanics communities like mine is that we were better off 4 years ago. We had more money in our pocket. What has happened under the Biden administration with the open borders.
Sorry, we now know that what you say also matters, right? We just saw a tragic event in Pennsylvania. So, I mean, it is a rhetoric that for Latinos, we are immigrants or come from an immigrant family. A lot of them are Mexicans. Do you hate Mexicans? That's the question. So it is important to listen to those words, right?
those are not really pretty words. They're not noble words that we don't want to hear. But I agree with what she's saying is the fact that if the opportunity is out there for you to have a better wage or to have a better opportunity for your child to go to a better school, if you do not have inflation, if the border is not opened, if the American exceptionality is there for you, and you are the typical Hispanic family, of course you don't want to hear that, but you want to see what they do. And I agree with what she said, is that 4 years ago, look at the economy. Every single Hispanic was working. The unemployment was down. We had the opportunity to, if you work at a different company, to get a bonus. You were making, eggs were $1.99, milk was $3.99. So Hispanics also go to the supermarket.
Now, do you anticipate Democrats running replays of this clip on and on in the weeks coming before the election?
Of course they will. They want to replay that clip over and over again, but that's where they are missing the real opportunity to connect with Hispanics. Because at the end of the day, when my tia is going over to the store and she's buying aguacates, she's not thinking about what President Trump said. What she's thinking about is, wow, I could buy this aguacate cheaper 4 years ago than today. And that's what they're thinking about, is the prices. As Hispanics, we have bigger families, more mouths to feed. And so at the end of the day, it's who is going to help me put food on the table. And we believe that it will be President Trump.
So, yeah, you're right. Number one issue for Hispanics is the economy, inflation, the cost of living. And right after that comes immigration. President Trump wants to deport millions of immigrants. He's been talking about mass
illegal
deportations.
Immigrants,
Undocumented immigrants.
Illegal.
Correct. Mass deportations. But isn't that completely the opposite to what you've been proposing, Congresswoman Salazar?
Well,
the Dignity Act.
Yeah, that is let's see what happens. And I understand what you're telling me, but I do know that sometimes those are rhetorics that you say while you're campaigning, and when it comes to time to govern, that may not happen. What I do know is that those hands are needed. The business community needs hands. People picking up the jalapeno peppers or the tomatoes or the oranges or cleaning the toilets or laying the bricks in the construction. So let's hold off and see what happens. And I agree that we had look. It's very important for everyone to understand that what the Biden administration has allowed in the last 4 years, 8 million people took him in through the border, is the worst thing that they could have done to the Hispanic community. Why? Because they have then put in the back burner all those topics that we were talking about and we were fighting for. The DACA kids, the Dreamers, the DAPA, the TPS, everyone who was waiting to have some type of legality or dignity, who has been here for 25 years, now all that is forgotten because of the border. Why did the Democrat Party do that to our community?
Now, what do you hope President Trump does with immigration then?
Well, I think that he should say it's not amnesty, it's dignity. And
what does that mean?
What does that mean is that right now the word is amnesty. We're not going to give amnesty. Well, those who are here and who have been here for more than 5 years, who have contributed, who have roots in the community, who has American children, don't have a criminal record and have been cooperating with the economy, maybe we should give them dignity. Those who just came in and belong to El Tren de Aragua, we should kill them. We should pull them by the hair and kick them out.
But dignity means work here legally and maybe a pathway to citizenship.
Dignity correct? Means at the beginning just to live a dignified life in the promised land, and that is the law that I'm presenting. Mm-hmm. Just give them dignity, bring them out of the shadows, and give them the opportunity to pay taxes under the dignity status. I'm not talking about a path to citizenship. And you know what? Our community, the millions of illegals, would love it.
Congresswoman De La Cruz, so we've seen that Latinos are shifting to the Republican Party, especially working class Latinos. What are the plans of the party to win more Latino votes in the coming weeks from now until November? Do you have any specific strategies to reach Latino voters?
I come from a district that is over 80% Hispanic, and we have seen this shift happening since 2016. In 2016, in Hidalgo County, that is over 90% Hispanic, Hillary Clinton won that district by over 40%. Now we are seeing, over 60%. We saw when I ran that we made a 30% shift over to the Republican side. That trend continues. We are just like every other American, where inflation is important. We're worried about the cost of living. We want a robust economy. We want small business opportunities. And so I think in this year that President Trump being focused on not only making America great again, but making America prosperous again, that will resonate to Hispanics because we want a better economy and we want a safe and secure border.
So how would you define success when it comes to Latino voters reaching more Latinos and winning more Latino votes?
Well, success would be Trump to be the first president in the history of the country that gets more than 50% of the Latino vote.
More than 50%?
More than 50%. He's very close, but maybe he'll get 55. You don't know. The
Polls show
Democratic
about
Party,
40%. Right.
Well, I think that the latest polls indicate that he may cross the 50% line. He was around 40,
46, yeah.
You also have to remember if, and I'm sure Maria will agree with me, is that what we saw this past week with the attempted assassination of President Trump is political persecution. Many families like mine, like Maria's, like many Latinos who are listening today, their families fled Latin America because of political persecution. And to see it happen to President Trump in the United States of America, the greatest country on this planet, they say, no, jamás. We want the American dream. We want a safe country, and we will not tolerate this. And I believe that is another reason that they will vote Republican. And we'll get to your 50%.
Yeah, I believe that image of President Trump right after the attack, when he is raising his fist and he is in the presence of mind and the courage and the instinct just to say, let's keep on fighting, that image will change the perception of many people within our community and I would say the whole American public, that this guy is a guy of great courage, and that is what we need in a time like we're living. Specifically, Hispanics love strong figures, and he proved it that he is under the most extreme circumstance.
Now, President Trump has said he's a changed man, and he's been calling for unity. What does he need to do to be able to unify the country, Congressman de la Cruz?
As you mentioned before, words can matter. And I think that what we're going to hear from President Trump is a message of unity. If he is saying he wants to unify America, which he has already shown a path when he's done that with Hispanics, as I said, leading the country in small businesses, I think it's going to be his tone, his messages staying on point, which are the two things, the two messages that he will focus on: border security, keeping our nation safe, and a strong, robust economy.
And given the circumstances, do you really think he can unify the country?
I think that Trump and I have privileged information from people who are very close to him, that this is a different man. Trump changed. At the hand of God. You know, I'm very religious. I do believe, and I send the word, that God spoke to him and said, I'm giving you a second opportunity for you to take the road that will unify this country that was created under the founding fathers and under the hand of God. He is I'm not going to say spiritual, I'm not going to give any adjectives, but I do know that he is a changed man. And we were talking about it that yesterday when he came out, and you were telling me that you were there, his demeanor, his expression.
But for how long do you think that change is going to last?
Listen, I don't know, but I do know that if you saw that bullet and you saw that image where if he had moved the head, he would be gone. I think that effect lasts for a long time.
let's talk about the debates just before we go, very quickly. Do you think Latinos have been really considered into this debate planning and the conversation within the debates, given the importance that Latino voters will have in this election cycle? Congresswoman de la Cruz.
Well, for the Trump campaign, I believe that they absolutely have. Look, they're giving someone like me, a little girl from South Texas, whose grandparents were Mexican farm workers picking watermelons to buy their first brick home. He has given me the opportunity to address the country on Wednesday. What a beautiful point to show that the American dream does and can happen here in this great country.
What about you, Congresswoman Salazar? When it comes to the debates, should they be considering Latino voters in a bigger sense?
I'm always asking for that. And I believe, and I agree with what Monica is saying, that the American system, the American exceptionality gives you that platform for you to grow. And she's first generation or second generation Mexican. I'm first generation Cuban American. I think that the Latino community needs to wake up themselves. They need to to become a stronger political force in this country and come out and vote. We need to vote more. We need to vote in 80, 90%. Right now, the levels are less than 50%. Yeah. That does not help us one bit. We have the numbers, but we do not have the participation. And that's the message.
So I think time just ran out, but we're going to talk about numbers and Latino voters right after this conversation. Thank you both for being here. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Hello, hello. Thank you guys for sticking around. This is for you. The mic's always hot. Okay. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Margaret Talev, senior contributor for Axios. I'm also director of Syracuse University's Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship, and I'm very happy to have you here with us today for another great event at Axios House here during RNC Week in Milwaukee. If you're on social media, please use the hashtag Axios House when you're posting, and of course, please visit Axios.com for all the up-to-date election coverage from our newsroom team. Okay, I am going to see some stuff on the board in a second. Excited to dive in with our two guests here next to me. I'm joined on the far side by John Gerzema, CEO of the Harris Poll, and by Alfonso Aguiar, who heads up Hispanic engagement at the American Principles Project. In case you missed it, we did release a piece this morning on some new polling data gathered from our Vibes poll partnership with the Harris Poll, and this really focuses on U.S. Latino voters and their views about what matters most this election cycle. So thank you both for joining us here at Axios House.
Thanks, Margaret.
John, I want to start with one statistic from the poll that really stood out to me, and Alfonso, I think you probably feel the same way. It said that about 80% of Latinos say that they are aware of their growing electoral importance, but they feel they are, quote, often used as pawns by politicians who don't actually care about us. John, I'm going to start with you. What are the political implications of that finding?
I think, Margaret, when we get into this poll and we unpack it a little bit more in this conversation, you're going to see a really interesting set of data figures showing the power of the Latino voter, as we just discussed in this previous conversation, and also the fact that not only have they arrived, they want to be reckoned with and they want to be heard and understood. We see that in the data, both with their intention to vote, their enthusiasm about voting. And I think that, Alfonso, this is going to be a really interesting time.
Well, I think that number is very interesting. And it should tell us that the era of pandering to Latinos is over. We have a much more sophisticated Hispanic electorate, and they want to hear about ideas. The era of, and from both parties, the era of Viva Bush, you know, here are the mariachis. All of that's very nice, but you have to speak to them with ideas. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're shifting towards the right. Republicans, it's not because necessarily Republicans are doing a great job in terms of Hispanic engagement, political. It's because we're winning the battle of ideas with Hispanics.
I want to go, we can talk about ideas, but I want to go to enthusiasm for a second. First, you'll see some numbers up here on the screen above us. I think we've been hearing a lot in recent election cycles about whether Republicans can win over the majority of the Latino vote, or Latino voters who are third, fourth generation, fifth generation Americans moving to the right. But the surveys seem to me like a reminder, number one, that there's not such a thing as, quote unquote, a Latino voter. There's not one kind of Latino voter. But also, it's not just about which party you pick. It's about whether you are enthusiastic and going to turn out, right? And that's what these numbers show us. They show us that Latino voters in the U.S. say that they are slightly less likely to vote, slightly less enthusiastic than Americans overall. But then it's the split that matters. Latino voters who identify as Republican, much more likely to vote, much more enthusiastic, a 15, 16-point gap over Democrats. What's that about?
Yeah, I mean, you see the data up here. You see these 15, 16-point gaps on intent to vote, it being excited about voting, and really, Margaret, it's related to the excitement about the candidate. Also a 16-point gap that I'm excited to go out and vote for this candidate.
The candidate Donald Trump.
The candidate Donald Trump. I mean, with Latinos, that's critically important as you look at this data because, as you mentioned, even though they're not attending in our survey to want to vote as much as all American voters, the strength of that Republican cohort and that excitement about this candidate is what I think is really interesting to
the
poll.
The survey showed Latino Republican voters are about as enthusiastic as all Republican voters. The gap is with the Democratic voters, Latino Democrats versus non-Latino Democrats.
Right.
Well, are you an expert on Democrats?
No, but I mean, I could understand why they're not very excited with their candidate, but I can say that. But look, what's interesting, Republican Hispanics are very enthused with Donald Trump. But I would say that generally, based on ideas, and we see this in the results of the poll, when it comes to immigration, when it comes to inflation, they prefer Trump on those issues than Biden. I think that, and they're attracted by Donald Trump. And I wouldn't say only his persona, Donald Trump and his ideas, what he stands for. The poll shows, for example, that generally the perception of Hispanics of the Republican Party is still the party of the rich, of corporate interests. But that's not Donald Trump. So to me, it means that if the Republican Party wants to become a Big Ten party, to really win over Hispanics, I think Donald Trump has set the path, the agenda that connects with Hispanics. And that's very interesting because remember in 2015, 2016, many, and I think at that time including me, were saying that Donald Trump did not understand the Hispanic community or the values and aspirations of Hispanics. Well, it turned out to be that in terms of the Hispanic vote, the best thing that could happen to the GOP was Donald Trump and this move towards economic populism.
So I want to talk a little bit about that and go a little bit deeper based on some of our findings. John, you said in your analysis of our data when it came back that the findings show that there's a real opportunity for former President Trump and now the Trump-Vance ticket, maybe we can talk about J.D. Vance a little bit and his role in this, to rebrand the Republican Party around the idea of upward mobility for Latinos. Can you explain why you see that?
Yeah, and it's exactly what Alfonso's just been describing, which is there is an outdated portrait of the Republican Party among Latinos to some extent. They do still see a 15-point sort of gap, largely on being out of touch with ordinary workers or being perceived as sort of the party for big business. But you insert the candidates into this, it's a different discussion. And that's what I think what we see in the data, which makes this really interesting. In our data, Republican Latinos at large, were about 10 points higher on believing that with hard work and determination, you succeed in America. stronger degrees on pride in America and believing in the American dream. So this is, I think, the opening of a more populist message, and that has the ability to potentially swing and move some of these voters.
I agree 100%. I think at the end is who can deliver the American dream. And I think we saw it yesterday during the first day of the convention. The message was about engaging workers of all types and stripes, African Americans, Hispanics, and including them, not pandering to one specific group, but treating everyone as American. That is aspirational. That's what Hispanics want to hear. And especially now, as the poll shows, where the economy, not the economy, inflation is the number one issue by far, and they believe that Trump is, Republicans and independents believe, the majority, that Trump is in a better position with his policies to lower inflation and provide a better life for their families.
I did want to ask you about this. Why is populism a message that would particularly appeal to Hispanic voters? Does it have to do, is that an outcropping of immigration, of how many generations your family's been in the United States, of what kind of work you can attain? Why is a working class message or a populist message one that would resonate with right of center Latino voters?
I mean, well, both what we see in the data, and it's really important to kind of level set this with the economic realities of this election. That's going to be the important thing for Latino voters in the cycle, is what they tell us. 56% of U.S. Latino voters tell us that their personal economic situation is poor, versus 44% who say it's good. Yeah. And then when you look at what are the three most important issues in the country, it's my personal economics, it's inflation, it's high prices, it's affordable housing, it's wages. And that is at a 3-to-1 ratio over the next two most important issues, which are reproductive rights and immigration.
So populism is really not an ideology, is really a political strategy to engage the vast majority of voters and citizens. You can have Democratic populists. Some would argue that Obama was a populist. Donald Trump is a populist. Think about thinking of the Republican convention in 2012 in Tampa, where there was an entire day dedicated to small business owners. I love small business owners. There be some small business owners here. A lot of entrepreneurs, we favor that. But the majority of Americans, like the majority of Hispanics, are not entrepreneurs or small business owners. They're employees, living check to check.
So talking to workers is a message.
So talking to workers is the key to reach all Americans.
You know, we talk a lot when there's polling about voters, about what's unique about Latino voters as opposed to all voters. Aren't Latinos just Americans? I mean, in fact, don't Latinos most often reflect what the independent vote looks like in America? But this survey did find some differences between what Latino voters say is priority to them versus what Americans overall did. And John, can you talk a little bit about some of those key differences?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that was pretty important, in addition to the economic issues, was just their attitudes around border security. I think sometimes the Democrats can frame Latinos as sort of being open on borders, and that's exactly the opposite. Yeah. We saw by a 3-to-1 margin, sort of 62% of Americans, Latino Americans, believed it was really important to have strict versus lenient border security policies. And yet at the same time, there was about a 2% difference, 43% versus 44%, saying we should also be open to pathways to citizenship. When you pull back and you look at that, you see very strong beliefs on border security, and yet at the same time, an openness and willingness for those who are going to do it the right way, that are going to do it legally, to take that forward.
This is another fascinating find from this poll. First of all, immigration is not the number one issue. And the left and many in the media had been telling Hispanics it's the number one issue. It is not. But also that Hispanics have evolved in this issue. As you were saying, I think many Democrats and perhaps many immigration advocates were arguing that Hispanics were for more lenient border policies. Well, not true. When you look at the poll, the majority are for strict border policies on border security and on unauthorized immigrants. That's very dramatic. And I think the other number on a path to citizenship, I think there has been a shift there. Because now it's kind of divided, 43 to 41, which makes me think that, sadly, because of the left's and this administration's not paying attention to border security or actually disregarding border security completely, we are in a position where there are many Americans who in the past supported some sort of path to legalization that are now saying, wait a second.
Is that what you think the data says?
I mean, I'm saying it may indicate that. I don't think it conclusively says that.
Yeah, you have a much more stringent view on Republican Latinos than on Democratic Latinos. But at the same point, I think that there's an interesting idea here around just shattering that stereotype that we don't want to have border security.
Very last question, because we are out of time, unfortunately, is right now a majority of Latino voters do still align with Democrats on most things. Do you believe in the next 5 years that Latinos will be a majority Republican Party, or do you believe they will still comprise majority support inside the Democratic Party?
I believe if the Republican Party can understand the Latino voters and what they're looking for in this more populist message, and they shift just a little bit from being the party for big business to the party for my business and creating a more personal relationship, they're going to do very well.
I agree with an economic populist message. I think that it is very possible that in this election we could get to 45% at the national level, which is probably a point higher than what George W. Bush got in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. But in this path, we could get in a national vote the majority of the Hispanic vote. But still, it's not that we're going to control the Hispanic vote. It's a more sophisticated vote that has to be won, and it has to be won with ideas.
Thank you both. Alfonso and John, stick around here for 1 second to our audience. We'd also love for you to stick around. We have one more event today at Axios House. We're going to be hosting Ohio Congressman and the House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan. That's at 4 o'clock today, an interview with Alex Thompson, our national political correspondent. Thanks to Telemundo and the team at Telemundo for partnering with us on today's event. Please be sure, if you have not already, to subscribe to our Axios Latino newsletter, which is authored by Russell Contreras and Astrid Galvan. Head to Axios.com for more in-depth coverage on issues impacting Latinos in America today. And please stick around. Enjoy a bite if you haven't already. I look forward to catching up with all of you after this event. Thanks. Thank you both.